Good morning everyone, it's Dana, and thank you for joining me on my channel, The Orchid Hut. Please hit the like button at the end of this video if you learned something or enjoyed it, and go ahead and subscribe because I have many more orchid videos coming in the future. Today is watering day. Well, sort of. A little bit of a backstory on this. Today is Tuesday. It's not usually my watering day on Tuesday. However, starting late last week and over the weekend, we had Hurricane Nicholas passing through eastern Texas, and the weather was very cloudy and somewhat less humid because of the north wind from the storm. So I typically water many of my orchids over the weekend, like a Saturday or Sunday, but as the weather started to turn cloudy on Friday, I noticed that they were not drying out like they usually do. And also the weather's turning a bit cooler, so that could have something to do with it as well. But because they had not dried out from the previous watering, I decided to postpone my watering until today, which is Tuesday. And this is just one of the things that you learn how to do as you begin to observe your orchids and how the environment around them is changing and how well they're able to absorb the water from the previous watering. But today's video is going to focus just on my Tolumnias. Now, I have a Tolumnia growing outside on a mount, and it's currently blooming right now. That was the first Tolumnia that I had. But these four are more recent purchases, probably like within the last, I would say maybe 5 to 6 weeks. So this is how they arrived when I had them shipped to me. I cannot find Tolumnias locally to purchase, so I do have to have them shipped. They're one of my favorite orchids. I think they are just cute. The plants are very attractive. The blooms are very attractive. They don't take up a lot of space. So if your growing space indoors is limited, or even if it's limited outdoors, you can still be successful with these because they don't take up a lot of space. They do have a couple of unique, maybe cultural needs. They do like to have a very rapid wet-dry cycle. And for me, in my very humid climate, that's sometimes a little bit challenging, so I have to watch the roots. They do need the opportunity to dry out in between waterings. So typically during the summer indoors, I will water these every other day. But now I think it's probably been about 3 or 4 days since I've watered these because I just noticed that my orchids were not absorbing the water as we had this storm pass through. So we're going to look at these together today, and I'm going to show you just really quickly how I water them indoors. Now, I have not changed how they were potted since they were shipped to me, so I'm still watering and trying to care for them this way. Eventually I will put them on mounts, or I will repot them with some very large chunks of bark. I haven't exactly decided yet, but I am allowing them some time to adjust to my environment before I also change how they're potted. So at the end of this video, I will give you the name of each one. So look for that, but for right now, we're just gonna water them. Okay, so this is the first one. Now notice when it was sent from the orchid grower, it has been in this little plastic pot for quite a while. And all of these orchids had what I would call some desiccated roots from before they were even shipped. So about a week or so after I received these, I did trim off the dead roots, but each and every one of these little Tolumnias, if you can look really close on the inside, you can see that new roots are developing. This one maybe not quite as much as some of the others, but what I do to water these, and this water has some of my regular orchid fertilizer in it, so that's why it's a little bit blue. I use CalMag fertilizer. And I just kind of roll that around in that water. I'm trying to avoid getting water in between the fans, in between the leaves where the fans grow, because I really don't want that water to sit down in there. And here's the next one. This one also had a lot of sort of dead roots growing in and around that pot, but I do see, like right in there, you can see maybe a new root coming. There are also some smaller roots down inside the pot that you can maybe see. But again, I just dunk it. I try not to get water too far up the leaves of the plant, because that could kind of just sit there and not dry and cause problems. Okay. And this next one is the largest. It has the most fans. And this one also has the best new root development. So you can see here, there's a lot of new roots growing. I also see a few kind of down in the bottom. So I want to make sure that those new roots get a touch of water. And in the wild, you know, these orchids grow just by attaching themselves to little twigs, and they have to absorb the tiniest little bit of dew or a raindrop that might run down the twig. So their needs for water are not great. They do have to have some, but then they also like to dry off quickly. So I'm just making sure those new roots on the other side are touching the water for a bit. And then I let it do a quick little drip dry, so not too much water collects in the bottom of this plastic pot. And here's the final one. This one was potted a bit differently. It is potted in a small pot with just very, very large chunks of orchid bark, but it has a better root system. And I think for this one, I'll water it a bit differently. Let me get a paper towel, because this is going to drip a little bit. And again, when I pour this water, you know, you don't have to like saturate the entire plant. It's not like a soaking in that sense, especially for this one where it's going to have a bit more of a challenge to dry out because there's less air in between the bark. So I'm just going to pour just the tiniest bit around the edges, and that will be enough. All right, so that's watering my Tolumnias for today with a little bit of fertilizer. Thanks for watching. This is the Tolumnia that I have growing outdoors. It's mounted on a piece of cork bark, and just to make it a bit more interesting to look at, I attached a small piece of ball moss that was growing to a twig underneath the plant. Now, the ball moss is not parasitic, so it does not take water or nutrients from the host plant. Here in southern Texas, it likes to grow in low light, humid areas, and it will attach itself to live oak trees and other trees that are native to South Texas. And it's a member of the bromeliad family, or maybe like even the air plant family. So it is also an epiphyte, just like orchids. When I water my Tolumnias outside, I typically just spray water underneath the mount so as not to get any of the water in between the fans or in between the leaves of the fans. During the summer months when it was very hot, I did water this Tolumnia every morning, allowing it to dry out before nightfall. But now that the season has shifted to fall, I'm only watering it every other day to make sure that I can allow it to have its wet-dry cycle. Here are the names of the Tolumnias featured at the beginning of the video. Click the like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to my channel, The Orchid Hut, by clicking the button in the bottom right-hand corner of the window.